Well, welcome everyone. Welcome. This is Pass Eye On the podcast, and I am your host, Dr. Shawn M. Nicholson, and I am excited to bring yet another episode to you about some of the great work that folks are doing in the area and even abroad. Remember, each person's journey is unique, so these individuals that I'll be interviewing during this particular series will provide a broad range of insight as well as experiences that they have unfolded, if you will, from their passion, their potential, and their purpose. Now, my hope is that through these interviews, it will inspire you, it will lift you up, it will encourage you to be able to go out and discover your own path and then ultimately live a life on purpose as well as fulfillment. So thank you once again for joining us. Well, this episode is really, really exciting because I'm going to bring to the screen now someone that we share a network of folks together. And I have to give a shout out to Mr. Brian Olds and the Black Speakers Network. What he is doing a tremendous, a phenomenal job of spotlighting, highlighting, and supporting Black speakers around the country. Shoot, as a matter of fact, across the globe. I mean, he's big time. He's all across the globe. And I have the privilege of having a young lady today that's really not too far from me. I like to say she's right down the street. I'm in Richmond, Virginia. She's in the Tidewater area. And at some point, maybe our paths have crossed where we at least have some familiar things that we're doing. And I'm just excited to bring her to the stage today. None other than Miss Monique Smith. Hello, hello. How are you?
Hi, Dr. Nicholson. How are you?
I'm awesome. I'm awesome. I like to say there's a guy that used to say this: "I'm great and getting better."
Mm,
Yeah,
that's good. That's good.
yeah,
That
very
means growth.
optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. That's right. That's a way to look at it. And that's what I like to do. I like to look at things positively because at the end of the day, it's all of how we make it. I can respond, I can reject, I can accept, however or whatever is coming my way.
That's interesting because I just embraced I get to do.
Mm,
So yeah, that's my new mantra to try to keep my brain like just don't respond to what's going. I get to instead of
yes.
like having somebody saying they caused me to or I just wasn't thinking
Mm.
I just responded.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. And listen, in the line of work that we're doing, well, shoot, forget the line of work that we're doing. In the day that we're living in now, we need all the help we can get because we got enough distraction, negativity, and bad energy coming our way. So we got to try to figure out a way to get rooted so that we can stay on task and accomplish the things
Mhm.
that we're purposed to do. So yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, I'm excited to have you today. There's some things that you're doing in our community with our babies, with our young folks and other folks, and I'm excited to learn a little bit more. Um, let's just dive right in, and I have a couple of questions that I want to kind of set the precedence because this is um, a podcast that I believe is very unique to the extent that everyone that comes across here has there's a common thread, and that's passion. And for me, my definition of passion is it's the ability to pass on. Hence the reason why I've trademarked that little display of the word, because I believe that I have the ability, the giftings, the purpose to be able to help whoever comes in contact with me, whether it's through my experience, whether it's through education, whether it's through encouragement, whatever it is, I feel mandated, if you will, to be able to pass a little bit of me on to them that would help them to activate their passion, their potential, as well as their purpose. So, my question for you, just to kick things off, what, how would you define passion? What is passion to you?
For me, um, because I'm in athletics, passion sometimes becomes a little um I can't say confused, but when a person kind of acts out of character, they say he's passionate or she's passionate because they're in their zone. That's what they're trying to explain. A person is in a zone. And I'm going to say, from a positive standpoint, passion is being in the zone and not having to think. It's like muscle memory, and it flows very from A to B like of a blink of an eye. And so, passionate. I think the most important thing is to be alert to your passions, because when you do that, then you're not on autopilot. You're on manual. In order to control your responses and to lead your ship, you really have to manually lead yourself versus being on auto. So I love passions. It does keep you going. It becomes endorphins. But when you're blindly passionate and not really realizing what your actions are, that's when you need to be checked.
Well said. Listen, I want to dive in that a little bit more because you're so accurate in that because we as individuals, we're going to look for any way, and I'm going to generalize, but we're going to look at any way to justify or to give an excuse for our bad behavior. You know what I mean?
That's exactly what.
I mean that's just what we're going to do, right?
Hmm.
Whether it helps or hurt, that's what we're going to do. And the way that you are describing passion, especially in athletics, as you said, it is misconstrued as well as misinterpreted for something that really, no, you need to probably get some help with. We need to dig into that a little bit more to figure out, what happened. And one great thing is that I do a lot of I do a lot of training for trauma informed care, and largely we deal with the young people and how the different traumas that they experience growing up, and we find that there are triggers that bring those things out. And that's when I can see very easily that word passion would come up. I'm just passionate. Like, no, we need to talk a little bit because you can't keep doing that. And it's interesting that you said sports because in one of the books that I wrote, I talk about passion and I talk about a flow state. And typically that's where athletes get into. They get in tunnel vision, they get in the zone, and it's all about that win. It's all about that game. It's all about whatever I got to do. And that passion is sometimes misappropriated, I think is a good way to look at it. So thank you for that. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you mentioned the things that you're doing. Well, not all the things that you're doing, but you did um, kind of reference the athletics and that you're in athletics. So with being in athletics, well, just basically tell us a little bit more about what you do. We can set the ground floor of where we'll build off of.
Okay, I'm a leadership strategist for athletic departments and sport organizations and
Mhm.
individuals who wish to advance in athletic administration or sports management. And so you mentioned the babies, but I actually help the individuals that are dealing with the babies directly.
Thank you for that clarity. Yes, and that is definitely a help because we what you're doing is definitely providing we'll just say resources for us to better um, articulate the goals as well as to exhibit the leadership skills and the leadership capabilities that we have to make things better in our circle or in our network. So that is awesome. So with that, my question to you would be, I understand that passion is something that evolves over time, right? It's something that over the practice makes perfect, so it evolves over time. With your business, leadership strategists, dealing with the things that you do, especially in athletics, how has this particular purpose that you're on or this journey that you're on transformed your life in doing what you're doing?
Well, I would have to say leadership is something that has been a part of my DNA since the beginning of my birth. And to some people, they say women are bossy. So I like to say I've been leading since I could talk, and definitely since I could walk, because I have unless you can really influence and tell me why we're going a different direction, I'm not going to walk that way. And that has what has led me to be one of the first women in athletic administration in the 90s. And so I did what my path led me to do. And it was a path that was very uh, less traveled, as my father would say. And I had to navigate that way. But to answer your question, um, so I was just telling somebody this yesterday. You know, when I was a kid and you came to my house and we were going to play board games, I would have already planned out which board game we're going to play first, second, third, fourth, how we're going to select the first person to go, what were the prizes when we won. Yeah, to some people that may take all the fun out of it. But for me, it was I didn't want anybody to miss anything. And so I can't say I evolved. I might have gotten better in my persuasiveness, you know. But I can't say because it's been me all along. And athletics just came about because I'm from a small town in Sussex County. And sports is what brought our towns together because we're made up of four small towns into one county. And that's what brought us all together. And I believe the spirit, school spirit, community spirit, athletic spirit, crowd, having a good experience is what drives a community, drives a university, drives athletic department.
I love that. I definitely have enjoyed the research that I've done on you, and now just you highlighting or underscoring certain things you've been doing. Um, Inclusivity for a while now, equitable work, making sure that everyone, gets to benefit from the same thing. And that's phenomenal. I mean, you're definitely a trendsetter in your field. With that being said, can you explain how your journey, we'll just say your journey of discovering that, because you said since you were able to talk, since you're able to walk, but I'm sure that it's morphed into at some point it really started morphing into something that it was tangible or obtainable.
Mhm.
Was there a pivotal moment,
Mhm.
or maybe a series of events that took place to say, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is my path. This is my purpose.
Well, it's interesting. I was telling a student, a Hampton University football player, and we were talking about math, and he was having a difficult time. And I said, yeah, I remember I could do the math problems because it's all about the steps, the process you get there. But when I decided what it was mine to do for a career, it was what came to me the easiest, without me spending all night long and couldn't get to the rest. And so, taking the same thought process, I should run championships. I have a media background. Had a podcast for 10 years. But the one thing that has always been the case, even in college, people always came to me for advice. I don't know why. My nickname in high school and college was Grandma because I'm not going to go too far left. I'm going to always be close to home base. And I'm a creative. Now, I will say the one thing that God gave me was having a way of being a creative problem solver. But I don't like solving the same problem twice. After I put the process in place, I'm out. So, if you know anything about consultancy, that's exactly what happens. Your experiences of doing something more than one time allows you to guide someone else with your eyes closed. Usually, you guiding somebody who is blind, but no, your eyes need to be open. I'm gonna have mine closed because I'm gonna hear and I say, no, this is what this sounds like. And usually I hear, I didn't look at it that way. I never thought of it that way. And when you hear something more than one time, that's when you know that is yours to do. So I did that as a sports information director. Students would come in my office and ask about, life in general. And I would say, you do this, this, and this. And because I know how to write a story to get a person all conference, even if they have a losing season, it's the same way with getting clients to their desired destination. So when you know that and it keeps going as a good flow and you can go do something else, That's the key. That's the key.
No, that's office. Awesome. I am definitely a proponent for systems, plans and systems. It makes work, life, everything so much better to be able to operate that way. So passion, um, how can I say it? So passion alone, right, may not always lead to success. May not
No.
always lead to success. It may not always lead to fulfillment.
Mm.
So how from your experience, from what you mentioned with college and helping individuals and just coming up as a youngster, and then even in your profession now, how can one tap into the potential that they may have to be able to channel their passions and basically, or at the same time, stay true to themselves and what they believe and want.
You have to invest in yourself.
Mm.
You have to invest in a guide, okay, a consultant. And I believe in higher ed. That's just been my home bed for 30 years. But now you can take courses online, you can YouTube it, but you need to learn how to package your specialized knowledge in order to gain income from that. And that's been the key for me because I'm an educator turned entrepreneur, and I've been a full time entrepreneur for 10 years. And I didn't know what I didn't know. And so that's one reason why I started my magazine, Significance in Athletics and Sports, so I can assist others in this field to realize, yes, you have your 9 to 5, but it's something that you have done at your institution that you fixed. There are steps that you took that you can tell somebody else. And in 2023 and beyond, you best have more than one income stream.
Well said. Well said. I'm telling you, I was one that, for one, I didn't like school. Just point blank, didn't like school. It didn't help the fact that I had a trade. I come from third generation. I'm the third generation contractor, so I had a carpentry trade. That didn't help because now that gave me options. And so with my journey, I shied away from um, traditional education, if you will, and with the vocational route. But it has definitely helped me to be who I am today. So with individuals that we're working with now, and it's not all about just the young people because you may be a career change and stuff too. You hit it spot on that there are transferable skills that can go into whatever it is that you want to do. So yeah, I agree that passion and the potential that you have in you is definitely beneficial to nowadays because we have to think outside the box. We got to be creative. We got to apply ourselves. This world that we're living in now is forcing our hand because it's really almost to the point it's sink or swim, right? With COVID, when the global pandemic set in my opinion, level set everything. Everybody felt that. So now ain't no more, okay, well, I can't get this because of X, Y, Z. No, we got a level playing for it now. Now it's time for us to use the potential that's inside of us. Education now, I can't get enough of it. Sign me up. I'm gonna take that class. I'm gonna take this class. I'm gonna take this class because it's the
Right,
more
right.
knowledge that I'm learning. I'm like, yes, give it. And now with AI and all this, there are no more excuses. No more excuses. So that's good. And then you hit it on the head too, as far as coaching and having someone to be able to be there with you to guide and to direct you and to champion you even to where it is that you want to go. I got one more question, then we're going to go to the break. But people often feel a disconnect between their day to day, their daily work, their 9 to 5s and stuff, and sometimes it interferes with their true purpose.
Hmm.
How can someone, or what would be your advice to tell the listeners, the viewers, on how that they can align their profession or their professional life with the passions and purpose that they feel that they're meant to do?
Well, one of the things that's really important for mental health is to identify yourself in more than one role. And so when you only identify yourself in one role, oh, life is gonna life. And so it's like a circle. And when this tire over here becomes a little less fat, you need to go over here and define yourself here. And this will push that air back out over here, and your road will be a little bit less bumpy. And that's what happens when we only define ourselves in a role that we receive a paycheck for. We become disenchanted. But when you tie it all together, that your aunt, your wife, your husband, your aunt, your uncle, your church member, you can go and get that air back into your tire to make your journey a lot smoother.
Great analogy. Yeah, that's awesome. And I think we do ourselves this service by putting ourselves in boxes, and now the responsibility, the obligations to do said things ends up being so overwhelming that
Mm-hmm.
we break. And mental health is very important, and especially as entrepreneurs and even those that are striving to fulfill their passion. You got to have that, and I know it gets worn out in saying, but we got to have that work life balance. We got to be able to do that. We're not machines, right?
Well, I would like to say I don't necessarily engage balance, but I do engage ebb and flow,
That's good.
because the moon decides where the tide is. And
Hmm.
so wherever your moon is, that gets your attention. And that
Hmm.
moon is going to come back around, and you're going to be able to experience other things. But that's where, because I'm a caregiver and I know that this time will not be always here. So
Hmm.
other things will just have to wait, but there'll be a time for that. So it's not necessarily a balance, you know, it's just like wherever the moon is, where this is in my season, of my life, that gets my attention. And when that moon moves over, that would be my attention at that time.
Well said. Well said. All right. Well, listen. Let's just take a quick break, and we'll come back. And I want to dive into your practice and the things that you're doing to help make the life and people better at what you do. So we'll be right back. Hi, I'm Dr. Shawn M. Nicholson, and I am excited to officially announce the release of a project that we've been living for years and deliberately working on for a couple of years called Do You See What I'm Saying? Walking by Faith. Our goal is for the reader, you, to take away this spiritual and biblical fact that faith must be released by words. For years, faith has been taught in the church. People have been encouraged to believe, but we have not really heard many teachings about words or saying what you believe. Faith equals the word of God. Hebrews 11:1 reads, Now faith is the substance of things. Therefore, all things were made by faith. In other words, everything that you see around you was made by faith. Do you see what I'm saying? We wrote this book, Do You See What I'm Saying?, to help reduce barriers that may prevent you from reaching your purpose, to encourage all people who are struggling emotionally, physically, spiritually, and even mentally, and are looking for helpful information and resources to assist with their spiritual journey towards their purpose. Child of God, you can overcome every negative circumstance in your life by getting the word in your spirit and speaking the promises of God. You see, faith is more than just believing. To have that God kind of faith, you must believe, trust, and rely on His word. In God's word, you'll find the wisdom necessary to accomplish the Lord's will for your life. Reserve your copy of Do You See What I'm Saying? My newest book, available in the Apple Store, Google Play Store, Amazon, and across all online digital platforms. Or you can just log on to drshawnmnicholson.com. Thank you. Do you see what I'm saying? All right, we're back. We're back. And I want to thank you, those that are just tuning in. This is the Pass I On the podcast, and I am Dr. Shawn M. Nicholson. I'm excited to have our guest here today, Miss Monique Smith. And she's the owner of Seeds of Empowerment, but she does a lot of great work in the community. And we wanted to bring her on to basically talk about the things that she's doing. I also have to say that I do appreciate Brian Olds and the Black Speakers Networks for allowing our paths to cross. He's doing a phenomenal work within the sector that he serves in. So thank him also for that. So before we went to the break, we were definitely talking about balance and talking about ebbs and flows or the difference between the two and what we have to experience, especially being in the space that we're in your business, if you can kind of share or shine some more light on the exact thing that you do and how you're able to control or manage those ebbs and flows.
Control is interesting. Actually, that's one reason why I really do like consulting because
Mm-hmm.
I can pick the time I do work with people. I can decide how long I'm going to work with the person. And so, because the key thing is time is something you can't get back. You can go earn your money back, but you can't go get that time back. And because I spent a lot of years in athletic administration, um, it's a lot of time that you're away from your family, a lot of time. And you want it to be really make an impact. Because if you're going to sacrifice, you want to be able to see it to come in fruition in others. And so I don't regret my time in athletic administration. So my first job was a sports information director at St. Paul's College in Lawrenceville, Virginia. And yeah, I was the PR person, which is called sports information, where you do the stats and you tell the stories and you promote the athletic department. Well, it just so happens that, and from a leadership standpoint, I went through 5 different athletic directors. And I was asked by the president to become athletic director at 28 years old. And I did after a little bit of a boom, if you will. I was working the Atlanta Olympics in '96 when the president tracked me down and asked me would I do that, and I was a little bit hesitant. And then the bomb went off, and I said, "Life is short. I'll go ahead and do that." And so I did remain in that position for 2 years. And then I went to Maryland Eastern Shore as assistant AD for compliance. And then the commissioner of the CIAA said, "Come on back home," because I had interned with the CIAA when I was a sophomore in college. And I said, "Well, sir, I really can't come back to do the same thing I did as an intern." And he said, "You get somebody in here, you train them to do what you don't want to do." And that was a real blessing. So I took the position as director of PR, and then I became director of championships. Then I became director of governance. Then eventually chief of staff. So I was there for 13 years. And then for the last 10 years, I have been a full time consultant. My first client was the NCAA. I went out and did leadership workshops because one of the things that I was known for is growing women leaders. And we had a retreat within the CIAA for all of the women at each institution. And I hired my mentor, Dr. Carolyn Hines, to be a facilitator of that. And so, what I learned from her, it was so interesting because she said this years ago. I want everyone here to be an executive coach. Well, we didn't know what that was. But she says, you all can be executive coaches for each other. And so that's really how it all grew, is by helping others see the potential in themselves. So seeds of empowerment means planting seeds of empowerment to lead others to greatness. And that's what I do individually. And my focus, my main focus is women, but I do have several male clients. And it's helping them. And I would say again, in administration, I have coaches to come to me and I say, look, I can help you, but my forte is about leadership and leading others. And I don't know necessarily your sport by X's and O's, but I am watching how you treat your kids. And that's the only thing I can speak on. And so I am hired out to do, because this is the retreat season right here, to go to athletic departments and lead their staff retreats for the year or do workshops for the student athletes. I really prefer to work with all the leaders, student athlete leaders, but I have done an entire athletic department student athlete population doing things such as disc assessment, but using birds to try to get them to remember different things. How to deal with change, how to do the 8 steps of change. So I have been blessed to be able to take a business book and make it into a workshop and put it into athletic form. So like Phil Jackson has a memoir called 11 Rings, and I created a workshop called Trying on Phil's Rings, so that the coaches can get an understanding of you. Okay, I might not be the winner, might not believe me, but you believe him because he's got 11 rings. So that's it. And then now sitting athletic directors, they do executive coaching with me through Zoom. And I'm able, because of all the experiences I've had, I've been able to guide them. And one of the main things I always say is mindset first and then think strategically. Because a lot of people don't want to take leadership roles because they don't want to deal with politics. I said, politics is nothing but a game. You just got to learn the rules of engagement. And the key is learn. And out of that, I really stress the R and learn. Building relationships with people rather than rehashing the issue at hand.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Wow. You hit on some great things. One thing I definitely got to put this in. Thank you for the time that you spent at St. Paul's College. A lot of people, some of the viewers or listeners may not know anything about St. Paul's College, but St. Paul's College was a very instrumental piece in Brunswick County. James Solomon Russell was actually the
Yes.
founder of it. There's high school, the middle school, and everything. My parents graduated from James Solomon Russell
Oh,
high
okay.
school. I've had other family members that attended St. Paul. It was very disheartening when they lost their accreditation and so on and so forth. But it still has been a staple in that community, and the work that you've done, as well as others that are there, will always remain. So thank you.
Yes.
I do want to say that. Thank you for that. I love the model. I love the analogies. I love the way that you are able to incorporate um, leadership development, executive coaching into that space. It's interesting because, especially dealing with athletic directors, they understand the language. They understand the information that is gained by coaching, as well as the importance of
Mhm.
coaching, because they're doing it on a day-to-day basis, right, with their coaches, their direct reports, and their students and things. So you being able to combine the two is phenomenal. That's awesome. Thank you for that. So just a couple more things. Passion and potential um, can closely be tied to personal growth. Okay, how would you say, or how would you ensure that your continued growth, if you will, um, it evolves, and the thing, or the journey that you're taking right now in this space? Because you mentioned the time that you spend in with the athletic at St. Paul. You mentioned things that you spent, governmental, and you mentioned things that you're doing right now. Not to necessarily answer the question what's next, but how can you ensure that continued growth will happen with your passion and purpose right now? What's a way that you can ensure that?
Well, one thing that's really important, you talked about passion. Um, you really must celebrate the process, because many people want things, because we're in a microwave life here. We're in prime. You order something you want the next day, but you really got to really celebrate the process, especially when you can't celebrate the win, because there's no losses, there's only lessons. And so for me, I'm continually seeking all types of lessons as it relates to entrepreneurship. and how to assist the people that I'm working with different vehicles. Like I said, the magazine came out of nowhere. In August, I will celebrate 10 years of having a podcast where I interview Black women in athletic administration. And so,
Congratulations.
thank you. So I have to continuously evolve, but celebrate the process of the things that I'm learning because it's not just for me, it's for others.
That's all. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, this. You're doing a great work. You're doing a great work. I got one more question.
Okay.
Um, has there been a time when your passion and purpose has, how can I say, intersected with a greater good or a larger cause? Has there ever
Mhm.
been a time that that has happened? And if so, could you kind of elaborate on that?
I just became aware of it this weekend.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So with the
Awesome.
podcast, it's grown. My group of women is 2,900 in my private Facebook group, and so I was invited in 2017 to speak to the NAIA, which is a small organization versus the NCAA. And in 2017, I don't know if you can pick this up, but I'm kind of direct. And so I told the people at the NAIA, I said, y'all are lily white and your athletes are not. And you need to do something about that. And so, because I went to do a workshop for diversity and inclusion for this national association, and they underestimated the attendance because they had to go bring in chairs. So I said that's a evidence that your people want it, okay? And they kept complaining about not having money to do so. I said you can go find corporate America. This is 2017 now to sponsor these things because people want to be attached to things like that. So they heard me, and then by that fall, they hired me to do a whole month focus on Black women in the NAIA. Well, guess what? There were so few that I had to do a podcast with the presidents. All right. So and then from there, I think it was like I did that in the fall. In December, I did like a white paper of what needed to happen and how they needed to grow it. And one of those was to create a committee about diversity within. So one of those young ladies that was on the very first committee, we talked on Saturday, and she was just talking, and then she said, I said, is that the committee that we talked about in 20? Oh, yeah, girl. It's called Rise, and we're doing blank and the blank and the blank and the blank. And I was like, oh my goodness. So again, planting seeds of empowerment to lead others to greatness. So this particular athletic director, her name is Donita Rogers. She's athletic director at Langston University, and her profile has risen, and the community's called Rise. So you get what has risen to a level that she's able to help others. So a St. Paulite, my student at 17 years old, is now the athletic director at Dillard University, which is an NAIA. And so I put her and her together because we said we need to get her inside some of those committees that called Rise has developed. So yes, and that's just one smidgen. That's just from this weekend. I have stories for days.
I love it. I love it. And I understood each pun. So that's great. What a wonderful way to end this interview with being that person that is truly and has truly passed on. I mean, we never know when the seeds are going to come up. And it's not for us to know. All we're supposed to do is just plant them. And everything will take care of itself.
Yeah,
Time,
somebody else will
yeah,
water.
that's right.
It's word. Somebody else will water. Somebody else will prune.
That's
All I
right.
do is plant.
That's it. Seed time and harvest. If it goes down, it got to come up.
That's right.
That is awesome. Well, listen, Thank you so much. But I want you to share with the viewers and the listeners how they can find you and your platforms, your website, and things of that nature.
Okay, well, I like to communicate on LinkedIn, so you can
Okay.
find me Monique A. Period J. Period Smith. My podcast is chatinthegarden.com, so that when people think about me, they're about development.
I
Okay,
like it.
thank you, thank you. And my magazine, I've got 5 issues already out. Here is one. This might person may look familiar. She used to be the athletic director at Virginia State in the 90s. This is
Oh, okay, okay,
yeah.
okay, okay, okay.
And she was my mentor. We were both athletic directors together in the 90s.
Wow.
Yeah, I was at St. Paul. She was at Virginia State. And
Hmm.
she put me on my very first NCAA committee.
Nice,
And
nice.
so I honor her by putting her
Mm,
on the cover. And these
wonderful.
are all these are Black women in athletic administration and sharing expert knowledge. And this can all be found on Amazon.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Smith, for joining us today on the Pass I On the podcast. I have totally enjoyed our conversation, and I know that the viewers, listeners will as well. So thank you so much. Just stay right there. I'll be right back with you. Well, I want to thank everyone again for tuning in to Pass On the podcast. I am your host, Dr. Shawn M. Nicholson. It has been a delight to have this particular episode of the Pass On the podcast. Remember, until the next time, that passion is the ability to pass on. We'll see you next time.